So, picture this. It's just another ordinary day at the Galactic Council headquarters. You know, that massive space station floating in neutral territory, where all the big alien civilizations come together to discuss trade routes and territorial disputes. Nothing too exciting usually happens there. The most drama they typically see is maybe some heated debate about mining rights in the Outer Rim. But today is different. The emergency alarm is blaring through every corridor, and delegates are rushing around like their lives depend on it. The main council chamber is packed with representatives from dozens of species, all talking at once in languages that sound like everything from musical chimes to grinding metal. Reports are flooding in from 7 different star systems, and every single report is saying the same impossible thing. Some unknown species has appeared out of nowhere and started systematically taking apart the hegemony's outer defense networks. We're talking about fortifications that have stood for centuries, protected by energy shields that could deflect entire asteroid fields. And here's the kicker. These mysterious attackers aren't using some advanced alien technology that nobody's seen before. They're not wielding reality-bending weapons or manipulating dark matter. No, they're doing all this damage with what the military analysts are calling primitive kinetic projectiles and modified civilian vessels. Ambassador Zektar from the Crystalline Dominion. Imagine a being that looks like a walking diamond sculpture is practically laughing at the reports. His crystalline face is shifting through colors that indicate amusement and dismissal in his species' body language. Seriously, he's saying to anyone who will listen, these primitives will fold the moment they see real plasma weapons in action. The military commanders are all nodding in agreement. General Vexhan, whose species had conquered 40 systems before joining the hegemony peacefully, is tapping his 6 claws on the conference table with confidence. In 3,000 years of recorded galactic warfare, he declares, no species has ever continued fighting after losing more than 12% of their forces. It's basic military psychology. Survival instinct kicks in, and they surrender or retreat. The head of Galactic Intelligence, a floating gas being called Director More-PH, is projecting holographic battle reports in the air above the table. The data shows these newcomers are coming from the 3rd planet of an unremarkable yellow star in what the galaxy calls Sector 7G. Nothing special about that system at all. Single star, a few rocky planets, some gas giants further out. The kind of system most civilizations wouldn't even bother to survey properly. Their technology readings are fascinating. Director More-PH announces in that ethereal voice that sounds like wind through caves. They appear to be using controlled chemical explosions for propulsion. Chemical explosions. Can you imagine anything more inefficient? The room fills with what passes for laughter among the various alien species. Some buzz, others chime. A few make sounds like grinding gears. The idea that anyone would still be using chemical rockets in an age of antimatter drives and gravity manipulators is absolutely hilarious to them. But then the reports keep coming in. The first outer defense station at Kepler went silent 12 hours ago. Then the monitoring posts at Wolf 359 stopped responding. The pattern was becoming clear. These unknown attackers were moving in a straight line toward more populated systems, and they weren't slowing down. Admiral Zorthex, whose own species had tried to resist the hegemony 2 centuries ago before being peacefully integrated, starts looking a bit uncomfortable. His tentacles are shifting in patterns that indicate growing concern. The tactical reports are unusual, he admits. Their attack patterns don't follow any known strategic doctrine. The Galactic Council's military doctrine is built on 3,000 years of civilized warfare. You demonstrate superior firepower. The enemy recognizes they're outmatched. Negotiations begin, and everyone finds a peaceful solution that benefits the greater galactic community. It's clean, it's efficient, and it's worked with every single species they've ever encountered. These newcomers, though, they're not following the script. When faced with overwhelming odds, they should be sending diplomatic signals. They should be requesting parley. Instead, they keep attacking with this bizarre determination that's making even the most experienced military minds scratch their various heads, tendrils, and sensory organs. Give them one taste of our plasma cannons, Ambassador Zektar declares with absolute confidence, and they'll learn their place in the galactic order real quick. Either that, or they'll be eliminated just as efficiently as every other primitive species that's tried to challenge the natural order of things. The meeting ends with everyone feeling pretty good about the situation. After all, how dangerous could these primitive chemical rocket users possibly be? So, the Galactic Council is feeling pretty confident about this whole situation, right? They dispatched their standard first contact fleet to Kepler Station. Nothing too fancy, just enough firepower to make these newcomers understand who's in charge. Admiral Vorth is commanding the operation from his flagship, expecting this to be over in maybe an hour tops. Kepler Station itself is this massive orbital platform that's been guarding that particular jump point for over 2 centuries. It's got energy shields that could stop a comet, plasma batteries that could vaporize a small moon, and enough automated defenses to handle anything short of a full-scale invasion. The Admiral's thinking this is going to be like swatting flies. Then the humans show up, and immediately everything starts going sideways. Their ships look like they were built in someone's garage, all rough metal plating and exposed machinery. No elegant curves or sophisticated energy signatures, like proper starships. These things are basically flying tool sheds with engines strapped to the back. The Admiral orders a standard warning shot, just a light plasma burst across their bow to get their attention. In galactic protocol, this is where the unknown species is supposed to stop open communications and start negotiating. Every civilized species in the galaxy knows this dance. But humans apparently never got that memo. Instead of stopping, they actually speed up. Their primitive chemical engines start burning brighter, and they begin spreading out into attack formation. Admiral Vorth is staring at his tactical display like he can't believe what he's seeing. "Are they actually going to attack us?" his tactical officer asks, all 4 of his eyes blinking in confusion. "With those tin cans?" The first exchange of fire is almost laughable from the alien perspective. Human projectile weapons are bouncing off hegemony's shields like pebbles against a mountain. But then something weird starts happening. Every time a human ship takes damage that should be fatal, instead of exploding or breaking apart like normal ships, they just keep coming. One human vessel. The bridge completely blown off, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches, suddenly changes course and starts accelerating directly toward the alien flagship. The tactical computers are screaming warnings, but Admiral Vorth can't process what he's seeing. "That ship is dead," he mutters. "There's no way anyone's still alive in there." But somehow, someone is still piloting that wreck. The human ship slams into the hegemony cruiser's port side at full speed, and both vessels go spinning through space in a tangle of twisted metal. The explosion lights up the entire battlefield. That's when things get really crazy. More human ships start doing the same thing, turning their own damaged vessels into guided missiles. Ships that should have been floating lifeless in space are somehow still maneuvering, still fighting, still trying to ram anything with alien markings on it. Admiral Vorth orders his boarding teams to secure the human wreckage, thinking maybe they can capture some survivors and figure out what kind of crazy species they're dealing with. The security footage from these boarding operations is what really breaks the aliens' understanding of how life works. Picture this. Hegemony soldiers in full environmental armor are moving through the corridors of a human ship that's been torn open to space. The atmosphere is gone, replaced by toxic gases from burning electronics and chemical leaks. The artificial gravity is fluctuating wildly, creating fields strong enough to crush most known life forms. And there are humans in there, not just alive, but actually fighting back. They're wearing these makeshift environmental suits that look like they were assembled from spare parts and duct tape. The suits are obviously leaking. You can see the seals failing, atmosphere hissing out through multiple punctures. By all rights, these beings should have been dead minutes after their ship got hit. Instead, they're moving through their own damaged vessel like they own the place. When the gravity field spikes to 3 times normal levels, they just adapt their movement and keep going. When toxic smoke fills the corridors, they hold their breath longer than should be physically possible and push forward anyway. The boarding teams are reporting encounters with human soldiers who are setting off chemical explosives in confined spaces, explosions that should kill everyone within 50 meters. But these humans are somehow surviving their own weapons and using the chaos to launch surprise attacks. Captain Riley Thompson, that's what they found on his uniform after the battle, was discovered 3 decks down from where his command center used to be. His environmental suit had 17 separate puncture wounds. His left arm was clearly broken, and he'd been breathing recycled air for over 4 hours after his life support failed. He was still trying to activate the ship's self-destruct sequence when they found him. Admiral Vorth watches all the security footage later, and he keeps replaying the same clips over and over. These beings were treating their own survival like it was completely optional. They fought like cornered animals, but with the tactical intelligence of seasoned warriors. They used their own damaged ships as weapons, their failing life support as camouflage, and their wounds as motivation to fight harder. For the first time in his 3-century military career, Admiral Vorth experienced something the hegemony had forgotten existed: genuine fear of an enemy. So after the disaster at Kepler Station, the Galactic Council's top scientists are scrambling to figure out what the hell they're dealing with. They've got pieces of human technology scattered across 3 different research facilities, and teams of xenobiologists, engineers, and military analysts are working around the clock to make sense of it all. Dr. Plixen, who's basically the galaxy's leading expert on alien life forms, is heading up the main research effort at the Central Science Institute. This guy has studied over 400 different species across the galaxy, classified everything from gas-dwelling cloud creatures to silicon-based rock people. He's seen it all, or so he thought. The first thing that catches everyone's attention is the human equipment itself. Their tools are built like they expect everything to break constantly. Triple redundancy on every system, backup power sources for the backup power sources, and materials that are way over-engineered for what they're supposed to do. It's like they designed everything expecting it to be used in a war zone. Look at this environmental suit. Dr. Plixen is telling his research team, holding up one of the damaged human spacesuits. The outer layer is designed to handle temperature variations of over 200 degrees. The inner layer has its own life support system, completely separate from the main one, and there's a third emergency system built into the helm alone. His assistant, a floating jellyfish-like creature called Researcher Blew Up, is examining the suit's material composition. The fabric appears to be woven with metal fibers. It's designed to stop projectiles, resist chemical burns, and maintain structural integrity even when punctured multiple times. But that's just the beginning. When they start analyzing the human weapons and tools, they discover something even more disturbing. Everything is built to work in environments that would kill most galactic species instantly. The weapons function perfectly in toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and gravitational fields that would crush normal equipment. Then they start looking at the biological data they manage to collect, and that's when things get really scary. Dr. Plixen inputs the human DNA samples into the galactic database to trace their plan of origin, and the computer immediately flags their homeworld with a class. 12 Death World warning. There has to be some mistake, Dr. Plixen mutters, running the analysis again. Nothing evolves on a class, 12 world. Nothing even survives on a class, 12 world. But the data doesn't lie. Earth, that's what the humans call their home planet, registers as one of the most hostile environments the galaxy has ever cataloged. The gravity is 1.8 times galactic standard, which means most species will be crushed under their own weight just trying to walk around. The atmospheric pressure would cause most beings to implode, while the gas mixture itself is literally toxic to 70% of known life forms. Free oxygen. Dr. Plixen reads from his report in disbelief. Their atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen. That's basically breathing rocket fuel. The weather systems on Earth are like something out of a disaster movie. Hurricanes that generate wind speeds capable of tearing apart buildings. Tornadoes that can lift vehicles into the air and throw them for miles. Electrical storms that produce energy discharges equivalent to military-grade plasma weapons. And that's just irregular weather. Apparently, Earth also gets hit by frozen water that falls from the sky hard enough to damage structures. Researcher Blew Up is floating nervously as she reads through the planetary data. The temperature variations are extreme. Some regions of their planet regularly experience temperatures that would freeze most species solid, while others reach levels that would cook our cellular structure. But here's the really insane part. Humans didn't just survive on this nightmare world. They thrived on it. They spread to every continent. adapted to every climate zone, and turn a planet that should have killed them into their personal playground. The biological analysis reveals that humans have evolved redundant organ systems that most species don't even have. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, backup circulation systems. Their bodies are designed like their equipment, with multiple layers of protection against failure. Their healing capabilities are off the charts compared to most galactic species. Wounds that would permanently disable other beings heal completely within weeks. Dr. Plixen's preliminary report to Galactic Council reads like a horror story. Subject species demonstrates impossible survival characteristics. Bone density 3 times galactic average. Muscle fiber strength exceeds theoretical maximums for carbon-based life. Pain tolerance levels indicate psychological adaptation to chronic physical trauma. The psychological profile is maybe the most disturbing part. Humans treat situations that would cause most species to shut down from pure terror as normal daily challenges. They actually seek out dangerous activities for entertainment. They climb mountains, dive into deep waters, and launch themselves to the air using primitive mechanical devices, just for fun. Their recreational activities, Dr. Plixen notes in his report, include simulated combat, high-velocity competitions, and deliberate exposure to fear-inducing stimuli. This suggests a psychological framework that processes mortal danger as a positive experience rather than a threat to be avoided. The research team discovers that Earth is home to millions of species that would individually qualify as apex predators on most other worlds. Creatures with venom that could kill a hegemony battlecruiser's entire crew. Pack hunters with intelligence levels approaching sentience. Microscopic organisms that could wipe out entire civilizations. And humans? Humans made themselves the dominant species on that planet. They didn't just survive alongside all those nightmare creatures. They conquered them, domesticated some of them, and turned others into food sources. Dr. Plixen files his final report with a single conclusion that sends shockwaves to the entire Galactic Council. Recommendation for immediate diplomatic contact with extreme caution. Species classification, Apex Deathworlders. Threat level unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, they weren't just dealing with another alien species. They were dealing with something that evolution had specifically designed to survive in hell. So the galactic hegemony is sitting there thinking they've got this whole human situation figured out, right? They've analyzed the data from Kepler Station. They understand what they're dealing with: primitive Deathworlders with outdated technology. The plan is simple. Deploy their standard suppression fleet, use their advanced energy weapons and electromagnetic warfare systems, and shut down this human rebellion before it can spread to other systems. Fleet Commander Zero is leading the operation from his command ship, the Eternal Glory. This guy has put down 17 different uprisings across the galaxy using the same tried-and-true methods. You hit their communication systems with electromagnetic pulses, disable their power generation with energy-dampening fields, and within hours their entire military infrastructure collapses. Clean, efficient, and it usually convinces the rebels to surrender before anyone gets seriously hurt. The first major engagement happens at the Wolf 359 system, where a human fleet of maybe 30 ships is moving toward a hegemony supply depot. Commander Zero deploys a standard electromagnetic attack, a wide-spectrum pulse that should have disabled every piece of electronic equipment in the human fleet. The aliens are watching their tactical displays, waiting for the human ships to go dark and start drifting helplessly through space. Instead, the human vessels just keep coming. Their engines keep burning. Their weapon systems stay online, and they don't even seem to notice that they've just been hit with an attack that has never failed in galactic history. Sir, his tactical officer reports, the electromagnetic pulse appears to have had no effect whatsoever on their fleet. Commander Zero is staring at the display in confusion. That's impossible. Run a diagnostic on our pulse generators. But the equipment checks out fine. The problem is that human technology doesn't rely on the same advanced electronics that every other galactic civilization uses. Their ships are controlled by mechanical systems, backup analog controls, and simple electrical circuits that are completely immune to the sophisticated attacks designed to shut down plasma-based technology. Then the hegemony fleet tries their energy-dampening fields, massive projectors that create zones where advanced power systems simply stop working. It's like flipping a switch that turns off all the lights in enemy ships. This attack has ended every single rebellion in recorded galactic history. The humans sail right through the dampening fields like they're not even there. Their chemical engines keep burning, their kinetic weapons keep firing, and they start targeting the hegemony's dampening field generators with focus attacks that show they understand exactly how the alien technology works. They're adapting, Commander Zero realizes with growing alarm. They're studying our tactics in real time and developing counters. But it gets worse. The humans aren't just immune to standard hegemony warfare. They're actually turning their own primitive technology into advantages. Their chemical explosives work perfectly in a vacuum of space, where energy weapons lose effectiveness. Their kinetic projectiles punch through energy shields that are designed to deflect plasma bolts. Their mechanical systems keep working in environments that would shut down any advanced computer. Within just 3 engagements, the humans have figured out how to exploit every weakness in hegemony military doctrine. They use debris fields to hide their approach, knowing that alien sensors are calibrated to detect energy signatures, not cold metal. They coordinate attacks using simple radio communications that can't be jammed by the sophisticated electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt Neuralink communications. Captain Blake Morgan leads a squadron of human fighters through an asteroid field, using the rocks as cover while alien pilots struggle to maneuver in the unpredictable gravitational environment. The human ships, built tough enough to handle Earth's extreme weather, bounce off asteroids and keep flying while the more delicate alien craft are torn apart by impacts that wouldn't even scratch human hulls. But here's what really starts to freak out Commander Zero and his officers. Human behavior during combat doesn't follow any known psychological pattern. In every species hegemony has ever encountered, military units become less effective as they take casualties. Morale drops, coordination suffers, and eventually they reach a breaking point where they either surrender or retreat. Humans do the exact opposite. When human units start taking losses, the survivors don't get demoralized, they get angry. Not just angry, but focus in a way that makes them exponentially more dangerous. Commander Zero is reading battlefield reports that describe human forces that actually became more coordinated and aggressive as their numbers decreased. This doesn't make sense, he tells the staff during an emergency strategy meeting. According to our behavioral models, a human unit that's lost 60% of its members should be on the verge of psychological collapse. Instead, they're fighting with increased intensity. The reports coming in from field commanders are describing something that violates every principle of military psychology the galaxy has ever documented. Human soldiers who witness their comrades getting hurt don't break down or flee. Instead, something primal kicks and that makes them fight like cornered predators. Lieutenant Colonel Janet Stevens commands a human ground unit that gets surrounded by hegemony forces at a mining station on Proxima B. By all tactical calculations, they should surrender when their casualties reach 25%. Instead, as their numbers drop from 100 soldiers to 40, then to 20, their effectiveness against the alien forces actually increases. They start taking calculated risks that pay off in devastating attacks against superior numbers. They use their knowledge of human engineering to turn the mining station into a fortress, setting traps that exploit the aliens' unfamiliarity with Deathworld survival tactics. When they're down to just 12 soldiers, they launch a counterattack that drives off an alien force of over 300. Commander Zero's final report to the Galactic Council reads like something out of Nightmare. Recommendation for immediate ceasefire negotiations. Human military effectiveness appears to increase inversely with unit strength. Traditional suppression tactics not only ineffective but potentially counterproductive. Species demonstrates unprecedented tactical adaptation speed and psychological resistance to standard demoralization techniques. For the first time in galactic history, the hegemony's military doctrine wasn't just failing. It was actually making their enemies stronger. So after months of getting absolutely demolished by human forces across 7 different star systems, the Galactic Council finally calls an emergency session. But this isn't like their usual diplomatic meetings where they argue about trade routes and territorial boundaries. This time, they're sitting in that same chamber where they once laughed at reports of primitive humans using chemical rockets, and now they're discussing terms of surrender. The vote isn't even close. Out of 43 member species, 41 vote to immediately cease all military operations against humanity and request peace negotiations. The two holdouts, the Crystalline Dominion and the Vexon Empire, change their votes when they receive reports that human fleets are now heading directly toward their core systems. Ambassador Zektar, who had been so confident about crushing these primitive Deathworlders, is now advocating for whatever terms the humans are willing to accept. We cannot fight beings who treat warfare like a natural disaster to be endured rather than avoided, he tells the council. His crystalline form is flickering through colors that indicate fear and submission in his species' body language. The surrender ceremony is set to take place in neutral space. But here's the thing. The humans insist it happens aboard one of their own vessels. Not some pristine diplomatic ship or a purpose-built meeting facility, but a working vessel that's actually been in combat. The message is clear. We're not pretending this was some gentleman's war fought by rules everyone agreed to follow. The ship they choose is called the Iron Lady, and she's a converted mining vessel that's been through hell and kept flying. Her hull is scarred with blast marks from 17 separate engagements, patched with whatever materials her crew could find, and still running on some of the same systems she had when she was hauling asteroids instead of fighting aliens. Captain Tom Bradley meets the alien delegation at the airlock, and you can immediately tell this guy isn't your typical diplomatic type. His hands are covered with old burns and cuts from years of working on ships that weren't built for safety. His uniform is clean but clearly patched in several places. When he shakes hands with Ambassador Zektar, or does the closest thing to a handshake that a crystalline being can manage, his grip is steady as bedrock. The ceremony itself happens in the ship's converted cargo bay, because that's the only space big enough to hold representatives from all the alien species. There's no fancy diplomatic furniture or ceremonial decorations, just some folding tables and chairs that the crew probably uses for their meal breaks, surrounded by mining equipment and spare parts. But here's what really gets to the alien delegates. While this historic surrender is taking place, the human crew is just going about their normal business. Engineers are running diagnostics on the engines. The communications officer is coordinating with other human ships in the fleet. Someone in coveralls walks past carrying a toolkit, nods politely to the alien ambassadors, and heads off to fix whatever needs fixing. These people have spent their entire lives one mechanical failure away from death, floating in a vacuum of space in ships held together with determination and spare parts. A formal surrender ceremony with alien dignitaries? Just another day at the office. Dr. Plixen is there as part of the scientific observer team, and he's taking notes on human behavior throughout the entire proceeding. Fascinating, he whispers to his assistant. They're treating this momentous historical event with the same casual efficiency they applied to warfare. No celebration, no gloating, just professional competence. Captain Bradley accepts the surrender documents without any grand speeches or dramatic gestures. He reads through the terms carefully, because you don't survive as a mining ship captain by signing things without understanding them. Makes a few minor corrections in neat handwriting, and signs his name at the bottom. The galaxy's military leaders are in the audience, and they're finally understanding what they were really fighting against. This wasn't just another alien species with different technology and tactics. These were beings shaped by a world that treated survival as a daily challenge, where the difference between life and death often came down to keeping your head when everything around you was falling apart. Admiral Vorth, who witnessed a disaster at Kepler Station, later writes in his memoirs, "We thought we were fighting primitives who would be impressed by our advanced weapons and surrender quickly. Instead, we discovered that we had provoked the one species in the galaxy that genuinely didn't care about the odds against them. The humans established their new diplomatic embassy on a space station they build themselves, not in some existing galactic facility, but a completely independent structure that can function with or without alien cooperation. It's powered by chemical reactors, built from materials they can manufacture themselves, and designed to keep working even if every other system in the galaxy shuts down. The message to the galaxy is unmistakable. Humans will work with you if you want to work with them, but they don't need anyone's permission to exist. They've proven that when you push them, they don't just push back. They completely rewrite what's possible. In the end, it wasn't superior technology or overwhelming numbers that changed the balance of power in the galaxy. It was something uniquely human. The absolute refusal to accept that any fight was unwinnable, combined with the practical experience of beings who had spent millions of years surviving on a world that actively tried to kill them every single day. The galaxy had learned to fear not what humans could build, but what they simply refused to accept as impossible.